In addition, there are geographical disparities in the popularity of sports. For instance, the most popular football code in Sydney is the Rugby League, whilst in Melbourne, it is Australian football. This is just one example of how the sports that are popular in Australia can be very different from those that are popular in other parts of the world. The following sections contain a discussion as well as listings of the most popular sports in Australia. Number 11, Rugby League. There is a significant amount of interest in the National Rugby League in Australia. The number of registered National Rugby League players in Australia is roughly 170,000. NRL is highly comparable to Rugby Union. Nevertheless, several rules are slightly different between the two. In the National Rugby League NRL, for instance, there are only 13 players on a team, whereas in Rugby Union, there are 15 players. Furthermore, the regulations that govern restarting the game are likewise distinct from one another. Among the teams that compete in the National Rugby League are those from New Zealand, New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, and the Australian Capital Territory. Number 10, Australian Football League. Another sport that is extremely well liked in Australia is Australian Rules football, which is also referred to as footy or Aussie Rules in common parlance. Rugby League AFL is a contact sport that is played between two teams of 18 players on an oval field, which is typically a modified version of a cricket pitch. The only sport on the list that is played solely within the borders of Australia is sports like this one. The Australian Football League AFL is made up of 18 teams that come from 5 different states in Australia. This sport is extremely intense, competitive, and physically demanding, and it is extremely popular in Australia. The rivalry between teams and between states is extremely intense throughout the Australian Football League season, which runs from March to September. Number 9, netball. The sport of netball is extremely popular in Australia, particularly among females. There are more than 340,000 people in Australia who are enrolled in Netball Australia, which is the national governing body. Throughout the history of Australian netball, the Queensland Firebirds have achieved the greatest level of success. During the past 8 years, they have made 5 appearances in the championship game and won 3 championships. The Australian Netball Championships, the ANZ Championship, and the Suncorp Super Netball are the 3 levels of competition that are held at the national level in Australia. In addition, Australian players compete for their country in international competitions as members of the Australian Diamonds team. Number 8, swimming. The fact that 3.1 million people in Australia participate in swimming regularly demonstrates how popular this positive sport is in Australia. This is most likely because more than 85% of Australians reside within 50 kilometers of a beach. Always found in the water are people from Australia. Australian swimmers who compete globally hold the record for the most medals won in any sport at the international level. Across all Olympic sports, Australian athletes have won a total of 135 gold medals, with 58 of those medals coming from the swimming competition. Number 7, cricket. The sport of cricket is quite well liked in Australia, and the people there are also very skilled at it. Throughout the history of one-day international cricket, the Australian men's cricket team has achieved the greatest level of success. More than 60% of their matches have been won, and they have made it to the finals of 7 World Cups and won the Cricket World Cup 5 times themselves. In the summertime, people from all across Australia may be found playing cricket in a variety of settings, including on the beach, on the cricket pitch, and even in their backyard gardens. Some of the best cricket players in the history of the sport have come from Australia, including the legendary and pioneering leg spinner Shane Warne, who passed away recently. Number 6, cycling. Cycling is a popular activity in Australia. Every day, 2.4 million people in Australia ride bicycles. Every day, people in Australia ride bicycles for both recreational and competitive purposes. A significant number of children in Australia begin riding bicycles as soon as they can walk. When a child is still a toddler, it is a common practice to acquire a baby balancing bike due to its popularity. Why is it that riding is such a popular activity in Australia? Number 5, football. Traditional football, which is referred to as soccer in Australia, is also popular among Australians, which is to be expected given that international football is the most popular sport in the world. Although their national team has not been particularly successful in the past, people continue to have a strong interest in playing football. Australia has produced several outstanding football players throughout its history, including notable figures such as Mark Viduka and Harry Kewell. The sport of football is very well liked among young people. 48.7% of children in Australia between the ages of 6 and 13 participate in football. Both swimming and this activity are considered to be among the most popular sports among children of school age. Number 4, surfing. The country of Australia is home to some of the best surfing in the world. Only for surfing, individuals from all over the world fly to Australia. When it comes to areas where they can surf, surfers in Australia have an abundance of options to choose from. There are over 3.5 million active surfers in Australia, and women make up 1/3 of the surfing population. I remember that my personal experience of surfing while I was in Australia was primarily centered around a variety of different ideas for beach dates. Of course, some were more successful than others, and I wasn't particularly adept at the surfing element of the game. Because of the significance of the beach in the lives of a great number of people, surfing has developed into a defining characteristic of Australian culture. Australians have been responsible for producing some of the best surfers in the world today. One facet of surfing's popularity in Australia that is frequently neglected is the significant impact it has on the country's overall health. If you visit any beach in Australia, you will come across a multitude of signs that remind you to apply sunscreen and shield your skin from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. The Australian continent. As a result of the fact that Australia has one of the highest incidences of skin cancer in the world, the authorities are currently attempting to take action to address the issue. It is important to remember that high-factor sunscreen should be worn regardless of the time of day. Is it possible to get a tan while it's cloudy? Indeed. Are you able to be burned when the sky is cloudy? Indeed. All of you, please remember to put on sunscreen whenever you are outside in the scorching sun, whether you are surfing or doing something else. Number 3. Golf. Around 1.3 million people in Australia participate in the sport of golf. Although it is a highly well-liked sport in Australia, golf is not nearly as well known as some of the other sports that are included on this list. In general, this is because golf is a sport that is both expensive and exclusive. Despite this, Australia is the country with the most golf clubs, with over 1,500 of them, more than any other country. Number 2. Tennis. One other thing to mention is that tennis is quite well-liked in Australia. Australians Rod Laver, Ken Rosewall, and Leighton Hewitt are widely considered to be among the greatest tennis players of all time. The country of Australia is home to around 165 tennis courts and more than 1,000 tennis courts. This amount is much higher than the typical country's average. Every year in January, Australia plays host to the Australian Open, which is the first tournament on the Grand Slam circuit. Tennis is a sport that is enjoyed by Australians both to play and to watch. We hope that you have found this article about the top 10 most popular sports in Australia to be amusing. It's highly recommended that you read the other articles that we have published on the Sporting blog, which include blog pieces that discuss sports, wellness, and fitness. Number 1. Basketball. The sport of basketball in Australia has experienced steady expansion throughout its history. As a result of its dynamic and fast-paced gameplay, it has garnered a significant number of fans and inspired a new generation of talent. The National Basketball League, NBL, is the highest level of professional men's basketball competition in Australia. It is characterized by intense competition and contests that are full of excitement. On the international scene, particularly in the National Basketball Association, NBA, Patty Mills, an Australian basketball star, has gained a great deal of success and recognition. Basketball's presence in Australia is continuing to expand with excellent possibilities and skyrocketing popularity, which is creating moments that all Australian fans will remember for the rest of their lives. Thanks for watching. Kindly like and subscribe for more videos. In the comments section of the post, please tell me how many you discovered.